Dreams of invincibility. In the shadowed corridors of the Third Reich, whispers of unimaginable power began to stir. Hitler, the man who had already reshaped Europe through fear and ambition, turned his gaze toward a new kind of weapon, something that would shatter conventional warfare, a marvel so terrifying it would cement his vision of destiny. The world would later call them the Wunderwaffe, wonder weapons. But at the time, their very existence was a secret, known only to a select few in the upper echelons of the Nazi hierarchy. Factories hidden deep in dark forests, laboratories carved into jagged mountains, and engineers who worked tirelessly under strict surveillance were the architects of what seemed impossible. Every corridor echoed with the hiss of steam, the clatter of machines, and the quiet, fearful awe of those who understood the magnitude of their task. At the heart of it all was a vision, a war that would not merely conquer territory, but bend the very laws of technology and physics to the will of one man. The propaganda machines roared, feeding the German people with images of superguns, rocket planes, and flying bombs, blurring the line between myth and reality. Posters depicting the rise of unstoppable power adorned streets. Radio broadcasts carried promises of invincibility. Yet, behind the headlines and the rallies, the reality was far more complex. Brilliant inventions, but fraught with failure, secrecy, and a desperation born of a war slowly slipping out of control. Among the engineers, a select few believed they were shaping history. Werner von Braun, a young visionary of rockets, and his colleagues at Peenemünde pushed the boundaries of science at a feverish pace. Each launch was a symphony of hope and terror, the sky trembling with the roar of engines, sparks flying as molten fuel burned against the night. Every test was a gamble, not just of success, but of survival. One miscalculation, one explosion could erase years of work and the lives of those who dared to dream alongside the Reich. Within these secret labs, men and women moved like ghosts, their eyes haunted by exhaustion and ambition. Sparks lit their faces in the darkness. Machines hissed and groaned. Blueprints covered every surface, ink smudged by trembling hands. There was no applause here, no recognition, only the weight of expectation and the cold gaze of a leader who demanded miracles. Meanwhile, Hitler's personal obsession grew. He envisioned weapons that could rain destruction on London, annihilate entire fleets, and turn the tide of the war in a single decisive strike. The corridors of power echoed with urgent meetings, maps sprawled across tables, and the constant tension between promise and practicality. Some engineers whispered doubts, their voices swallowed by the hum of machinery. Are we building salvation or fantasy? They asked themselves. If you've made it this far and enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's free for you, but it helps us immensely to keep creating this kind of content. Thank you. The psychological tension was unbearable. Soldiers on the front heard rumors of terrifying new devices, their fear mingling with hope. Civilians, too, felt the distant, invisible hand of progress. News of secret projects carried on the wind, whispered among neighbors, imagined in taverns, speculated in newspapers. The Reich itself became a theater of ambition, fear, and obsession. By the time the first rockets roared into the sky, the line between genius and madness was thin. The ground shook, and the distant fires of experimentation lit the horizon. The promise of invincibility remained just out of reach. Yet, it was here, in these hidden factories and testing grounds, that the seeds of modern technology were sown, for better or worse. But beyond the calculations and machinery, there was another layer to this story, the human element. Engineers who were artists of precision, dreaming impossible dreams. Spies who risked lives to uncover secrets. Civilians whose curiosity collided with the darkness of a regime. In the flickering glow of workbenches, amid the smell of burning fuel and iron, history itself was being written, line by line, spark by spark. The story of Hitler's secret weapons was not merely a tale of destruction. It was a portrait of obsession, ambition, and the human drive to reshape the world no matter the cost. And in this first chapter of Shadows of History, we step into that world, a world where science became a weapon, and the shadow of one man's dreams threatened the fate of millions. The engines of innovation, fueled by fear and fanaticism, roared quietly in hidden labs. Each blueprint held a secret, each experiment a whisper of power, and every failure only sharpened the obsession. The Reich's dream of invincibility hung in the air like smoke, intoxicating and dangerous, and the world watched, oblivious, as the gears of history turned silently in the darkness.
The rockets of doom. The first true marvel of Hitler's secret arsenal was not a gun or a plane, but a rocket missile that defied imagination. At the Peenemünde Army Research Center, engineers labored in near-total secrecy, testing what the world would later call the V-weapons, the V-1 flying bomb and the V-2 rocket. These were not mere machines. They were symbols of ambition, instruments of terror, and the first glimpses of modern rocketry. The V-1, with its buzzing pulse jet engine, hissed through the air like a mechanical hornet. Its sound alone could strike fear into the hearts of civilians miles away. London, a city braced against the storm of war, felt its eerie presence before it arrived, an invisible enemy that would scream overhead, then detonate with merciless precision. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to rubble. The V-1 was crude, but terrifyingly effective, a warning of what technology could unleash when combined with obsession. The V-2 was an even darker leap. It was a missile of unprecedented sophistication, capable of reaching the edge of space before plunging back down with unstoppable force. Unlike the V-1, it traveled faster than sound, invisible to the human eye until impact. There was no warning. There was no defense. Its invention was a testament to genius in its purest, most terrifying form, engineers bending physics to the will of war, chasing a vision of absolute destruction. At Peenemünde, the tension was palpable. Every launch carried the weight of expectation. Every test could end in catastrophe. The roar of engines shook the earth, molten trails painting the night sky, illuminating the faces of men whose eyes reflected awe, fear, and exhaustion. They were pioneers, yet prisoners of their own ambition. Werner von Braun, brilliant and relentless, watched each flight with a mixture of pride and dread, aware that his creations would soon rain death on civilians, even as they paved the path to space travel in decades to come. Hitler, meanwhile, demanded more, faster, farther, deadlier. He was obsessed with turning these weapons into instruments that could break the Allied will. The military strategists, however, understood the limitations. The V-2 was costly, complex, and prone to failure. Entire crews risked their lives handling volatile fuel, assembling engines that could explode at the slightest miscalculation. Yet, in the Führer's eyes, failure was never an option. The propaganda machine exploited each successful strike, turning technical achievement into psychological warfare. Posters, films, and radio broadcasts celebrated the unstoppable might of German engineering. Yet behind the fanfare, the reality was stark. Production delays, technical flaws, and the human cost of forced labor weighed heavily on the program. Thousands of prisoners, conscripted in cruel conditions, labored to turn theory into terror. Their suffering was part of the secret history, hidden beneath the roar of engines and the glitter of innovation.
If you've made it this far and enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's free for you, but it helps us immensely to keep creating this kind of content. Thank you.
Across Europe, fear and uncertainty spread. Civilians lived in constant anticipation of the silent, deadly descent of the rockets. The V-1's characteristic buzz, followed by the sudden absence of sound before the explosion, became a haunting rhythm of life in London. Families huddled in shelters, eyes fixed on the sky, hearts pounding with dread. The V-2, invisible and unstoppable, brought a new kind of terror, one that technology had never before inflicted. And yet, for all the destruction, the rockets also revealed the duality of human ingenuity. brilliant minds had transformed fantasy into reality. Physics had been mastered to a degree never seen before. But in the service of obsession, ambition, and tyranny, that brilliance had a deadly cost. Every launch, every test, every blueprint was a paradox, a monument to human achievement and a testament to human cruelty.
By the end of the war, the V-weapons would leave a trail of devastation across Europe. Entire cities scarred, thousands of lives lost. And yet, in laboratories and universities decades later, the lessons of these rockets would ignite the space race, proving that even the darkest chapters of history could shape the future in unforeseen ways. In Shadows of History, the story of Hitler's secret weapons is not merely about machines. It is about obsession, ambition, and the collision of human genius with unrestrained power. In this second chapter, the rockets of doom remind us that progress and destruction often ride the same trajectory, leaving a shadow that stretches across time. Beneath the surface of war. By 1943, the war was no longer unfolding only on battlefields. It was descending underground, behind barbed wire, beneath mountains, inside reinforced concrete bunkers. While cities burned and armies clashed across Europe, another war was being fought in silence, a war of laboratories, drafting tables, and classified files stamped Geheime Reichssache, state secret. This was the Hidden Reich, a parallel world of engineers, physicists, and dreamers working under pressure, under fear, and under orders from a regime that demanded miracles. Inside this shadow network, Hitler's command was clear: create weapons that would change the course of history, weapons that would reverse defeat, weapons that would terrify the world. Welcome back to Shadows of History. Today, we descend into the secret projects. The dream of the impossible. Germany's scientific community in the 1930s had been among the most advanced in the world. Physics, aeronautics, chemistry, it was a golden age of innovation. But under the Third Reich, science became weaponized. At Peenemünde, engineers were not merely building rockets, they were attempting to bend physics itself to military ambition. Beyond the V-2, plans expanded rapidly. Supersonic aircraft, intercontinental bombers, guided missiles, jet propulsion systems that defied conventional aviation. Some projects were practical, some were visionary, some were pure desperation disguised as genius. One of the most radical concepts was the America bomber, a long-range aircraft capable of reaching the United States from Europe. It was meant to strike New York, perhaps Washington, proving that no ocean could protect America. Blueprints were drafted, prototypes were tested, but fuel shortages, bombing raids, and collapsing infrastructure turned ambition into impossibility. Still, the ideas remained, and they were ahead of their time. The jet age begins in war. While the Allies relied largely on piston engine aircraft, Germany deployed something revolutionary: the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet-powered fighter, faster than anything in the sky. When Allied pilots first encountered it, many thought they were witnessing a glimpse of the future, or a mechanical nightmare. The Me-262 could outrun almost any opponent. Its swept wings hinted at aerodynamic understanding that other nations had barely begun to explore. But innovation alone could not save a crumbling regime. Hitler insisted on using the jet as a bomber instead of a pure interceptor, a strategic miscalculation that slowed its impact. Production delays, sabotage, fuel scarcity. Once again, technology raced forward while reality collapsed behind it. Wunderweapons. By 1944, propaganda promised Wunderwaffen, wonder weapons. The message was clear: secret projects would deliver victory. New rockets, advanced submarines, exotic anti-aircraft systems. There were even theoretical discussions of orbital bombardment concepts, weapons that would circle the Earth before descending on their targets. Most remained on paper, but the research itself was real, and it laid foundations for the Cold War that was already forming in the shadows.
Inside underground complexes like Middlework, slave laborers assembled precision components while Allied bombers pounded German cities above. It was a grotesque contrast, scientific brilliance and human suffering intertwined. The atomic question. And then there was the ultimate secret: nuclear research. German physicists had discovered nuclear fission before the war began. The theoretical groundwork existed, but unlike the United States Manhattan Project, Germany never consolidated its atomic research into a single massive coordinated effort. Competing factions, resource shortages, political interference. Some historians argue that the regime misunderstood the feasibility of a bomb. Others believe internal sabotage and miscalculation slowed progress fatally. Whatever the truth, the atomic weapon remained out of reach. But the knowledge, the equations, the research did not disappear. When Allied forces advanced, they captured scientists along with documents. The war for territory ended. The war for knowledge began.
If you've made it this far and enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's free for you, but it helps us immensely to keep creating this kind of content. Thank you.
The shadow migration. As the Third Reich collapsed in 1945, secret projects did not simply vanish, they were seized. American forces initiated what would later be known as Operation Paperclip, recruiting German scientists and engineers to continue their work in the United States. The Soviet Union conducted its own operations, transferring expertise eastward. The laboratories changed flags, the uniforms changed colors, but the research continued. The same minds that designed rockets for vengeance would later design rockets for space exploration. The same propulsion equations that powered weapons would one day power lunar missions. The secret projects had failed to save a regime, but they succeeded in shaping the future. Science without borders, morality without answers. And here lies the uncomfortable truth. The technology born in darkness did not remain there. It crossed oceans. It built superpowers. It fueled the space race. It helped humanity reach orbit. And yet, its origins were rooted in coercion, forced labor, and authoritarian ambition. History rarely separates innovation from context. The secret projects were neither myth nor miracle. They were a collision between brilliance and brutality, between imagination and ideology, between science and power. Echoes in the modern world. Look at a modern rocket launch today. The countdown, the ignition, the pillar of fire rising toward the sky. And remember, the blueprint of that moment was drafted in wartime bunkers. The jet engines that power today's aircraft trace lineage to desperate wartime innovation. The Cold War, the nuclear balance, the arms race, the space race, all carry echoes of those secret projects. In trying to win a war, the Third Reich accelerated the technological trajectory of the entire planet, but at immense human cost. Science without borders, morality without answers. And here lies the uncomfortable truth. The technology born in darkness did not remain there. It crossed oceans, it built superpowers, it fueled the space race, it helped humanity reach orbit, and yet, its origins were rooted in coercion, forced labor, and authoritarian ambition. History rarely separates innovation from context. The secret projects were neither myth nor miracle. They were a collision between brilliance and brutality, between imagination and ideology, between science and power. The final reflection. The secret projects were born from fear. They were fueled by ambition. They were driven by a regime convinced that technology could compensate for strategic failure. In the end, they could not prevent defeat, but they transformed the world that followed. In the shadows of total war, humanity unlocked forces it was barely prepared to control. And once discovered, such knowledge can never be undiscovered. This has been Chapter 3, The Secret Projects. On Shadows of History, we do not just explore what happened, we explore what it changed. And in the next chapter, we will follow these scientists beyond the ruins of Germany into the dawn of the space age.
Legacy and obsession. As the Third Reich crumbled under the weight of its own ambition, the hidden factories and laboratories fell silent. The rockets, the experimental planes, the superguns, and the fantastical designs that had consumed the obsession of Hitler and his engineers were left scattered, abandoned, or destroyed. Yet their legacy would echo far beyond the ruins, a shadow of ambition stretching across decades. The Wunderwaffe had promised invincibility, but delivered only a chilling reminder of human hubris. Entire cities had been scarred, thousands of lives lost, and yet the technological marvels hinted at a future no one could have imagined. In the silence of the ruined laboratories, one could almost hear the echo of burning fuel, the hiss of pressurized engines, and the whisper of dreams too dangerous to be realized.
Some of the engineers survived. Werner von Braun and others were captured by Allied forces, their expertise harvested for new purposes. The very rockets designed to obliterate civilians became the foundation for space programs that would send humans beyond the Earth itself. It was a paradox, weapons of destruction becoming instruments of exploration, a haunting testament to the dual nature of human ingenuity. The obsession that had driven the Reich toward impossible weapons also revealed the limits of power. No matter how advanced the technology, ambition without restraint leads to ruin. Hitler's dreams of invincibility ended in failure, yet the story of his secret weapons remains a reminder of what can happen when genius is enslaved to tyranny. Shadows of History brings you face to face with these truths, showing how innovation, fear, and ambition intertwine, shaping the course of human events in ways both brilliant and terrifying. Even today, remnants of these secret projects spark fascination and debate. Historians, engineers, and curious minds pore over fragments of blueprints, photographs, and eyewitness accounts, trying to untangle fact from fiction. The fascination is universal, the allure of hidden power, the mystery of what might have been, and the consequences of dreams that were left unchecked. But perhaps the most haunting lesson lies not in the machines, but in the people who built them. The men and women who toiled in secrecy, driven by fear, pride, and brilliance, were both creators and victims of the obsession that consumed an empire. Their work reminds us that history is never simply about events or inventions. It is about the human spirit in all its potential for creation and destruction. If you've made it this far and enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's free for you, but it helps us immensely to keep creating this kind of content. Thank you. As Shadows of History draws this chapter to a close, we leave the secret weapons of Hitler behind, but their shadow lingers. The story is a warning, a reflection, and a testament to the extremes of human ambition. From the hidden labs to the battlefields, from the rockets that tore through the sky to the experiments that never saw the light of day, the tale of these Wunderwaffe is a story of obsession, innovation, and the consequences of seeking power beyond imagination. In the end, history itself becomes the final judge. The weapons were not enough to secure victory, but they were enough to change the course of technology, warfare, and human memory forever. And it is in this shadow, the shadow of history, that we find the truth of ambition and the lesson that some dreams are far too dangerous to realize. And now, as the engines fade into the distance and the sky grows quiet once more, we pause. If you followed this journey from the ruins of war, through the deserts of New Mexico, into the tense dawn of the space race, then you have witnessed more than history. You have witnessed transformation. You have seen how ideas survive collapse, how ambition survives defeat, how science, shaped by human hands, can become both shadow and light. From secret transfers and classified documents, to rockets rising against the desert sky, to the first fragile dreams of orbiting the Earth, this story was never just about machines. It was about choices, about consequences, about the thin line between destruction and discovery. And the fact that you stayed with us until this moment means something. It means that stories like this still matter, that history is not just something we read, but something we reflect upon, something we question, something we carry forward.
At Shadows of History, we believe these moments deserve depth, perspective, not just headlines, but understanding. And this is only the beginning. More untold stories are coming, more hidden chapters, more projects that shaped the world we now inhabit, often in silence, often behind closed doors. If this journey moved you, if it made you think, if it made you look at the sky a little differently, then we invite you to stay with us. Follow the next missions, explore the next breakthroughs. Stand with us at the edge of history as we uncover what came next. Because the story does not end here. The engines are still warming. The next story is already on the horizon, and we're grateful you're here to witness it with us. Shadows of History. If you enjoyed this story and would like to see more in the future, please give us a like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and why not, write to us in the comments what other kinds of stories you'd like to see on our channel. Thank you.